Okay, guys, before we start this lesson, quick review. What's 13 times 0? 0, right? What's 0 times 4.15? 0 again. What is 0 times the square root of 85? 0. And what is 2,837,451.9 times 0? You guessed it, 0. What was the point of this? It's a reminder that anything times 0 equals 0. Okay, well, today we are going to multiply polynomials and they have to equal 0. So here's how we're going to do this. In this equation, you can see that we have two factors, right? X minus 2 is a factor and x plus 10 is a factor. We're multiplying them together and they have to equal 0, all right? And we know that one of these factors, at least one of these factors, has to be 0. So we're going to set up two scenarios, all right? X minus 2 is 0. And x plus 10 is 0. Now we're going to solve for x in both scenarios to see what x can be for this to be 0, all right? So in the first scenario, x minus 2 equals 0. So x has to equal 2 because 2 minus 2 is 0, all right? Next scenario, x plus 10 equals 0. X has to be negative 10 because negative 10 plus 10 equals 0. So we have two possible solutions for x. X can equal positive 2 or negative 10, and we're going to write it in the set notation, all right? So if we go back and check, let's go back and check that. So if we make x equal 2, look at this. 2 minus 2 is 0, and 2 plus 10, 12, and 0 times 12 is 0, all right? And in the other scenario, let's make x equal negative 10. Negative 10 minus 2 is negative 12, and negative 10 plus 10 is 0. Negative 12 times 0 equals 0. So those are the two solutions for x. Okay, let's try another example. Here we have 3 factors, actually 4 because this is squared. So we have x plus 3, and 2x minus 5, and since it's squared, another 2x minus 5. So let's set up our scenarios here. Okay, so here are our scenarios. But do we really need to repeat 2x minus 5? Not really, because we're going to get the same answer. So let's eliminate that since we don't need to do extra work, okay? So let's find out what x has to be in order for that factor to be 0, all right? So in the first example, x equals 0, it's already there. So x equals 0. That's one of the answers for x, all right? In the next scenario, x plus 3, what does x have to be, right? We don't have to go through all the steps. We already know that x can be negative 3 because negative 3 plus 3 is 0. And in this final step, 2x minus 5 equals 0. This one is going to take a little bit of work because it's possible that we can't do that in our head so fast. So let's go ahead and add 5 to both sides, and then we will divide by 2. So then we can see that x has to equal 5 halves or 2.5 in order for that scenario to equal 0. So here are our 3 possible answers for x. Now you don't have to do this each time, but just so that I build trust with you, I'm going to prove that these are the 3 scenarios that can make this equation equal 0, all right? So let's try the first one, x equals 0. So if we substitute 0 for all the x's, it would be 0 times 3 times negative 5 squared, which is positive 25, and all of that would equal 0 because 0 times all of those things is 0, right? Okay, let's try when x is negative 3. So that would be negative 3 times 0 times negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. So that's negative 11 squared, which is 121, right? So you can see that there's a 0 there. All of that will equal 0. And finally, let's try the 5 halves, right? Let's say 5 halves times 5 halves plus 3. That's going to be 5.5, all right, times the 5 halves times the 2. The 2's will cancel, so 5 minus 5 is 0. 0 squared is 0. So all of that times 0 is going to equal 0. So you can see that in every single scenario, that equation will equal 0. So I hope I've built trust with you. You don't always have to double check if you trust the process, all right? And hopefully you trust the process now. All right, so this is how you do 7.5. This is how you solve polynomials that equal 0. Go ahead and try to do your homework, and if you have any questions, please email me. Okay, bye-bye.